The fallout of keying in the wrong labor codes, as the Weston case shows, hoodwinking industrial workers is economically suicidal and damaging to India. In December 12, contract workers ransacked Westron's iPhone assembly factory in Karnataka at Narsapura in Kolar district, about 80 kilometers from Bangalore. There are reports that property worth 250 crore was damaged and many workers sent to jail. The factory, which began production in July, employed about 2000 permanent workers and 7000 contract workers. The factory does not have a labor union. What caused the violence is the reason is said to be reported non-payment or only partial payment of wages or its delay and floating of labor laws such as non-issuance of wage contract and employing women workers in night shift without providing adequate safety. Incident and the deeper impact is that the central and the state governments have sharply condemned the violence. They are now busy controlling the damage incident has caused to the country's high-profile global campaign to attract foreign direct investment, especially under its production linked incentive PLI scheme to boost domestic investment in mobile phone manufacturing. The Wriston project showcased the government's success in attracting the foreign direct investment and promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat, the vision of making India self-reliant. However, according to the preliminary inquiry report by the State Labour Department into incitement, the report is unavailable in the public domain. Wriston and its labour contractors violated many provisions of the laws that led to the violence. The Taiwanese assembler has admitted its faults and sacked its vice president for its India operations for the lapses. Apple Corporation has condemned the violations of statutory laws and has reportedly put further business on hold until Wriston addresses the labor dispute. In July, the state government promulgated an ordinance to dilute the major labor laws, including the Factories Act 1948. The act regulates the ordinary worker's day length, overtime wages, hours of work, timing of shifts, safety and health issues, couched in legalese and yet to be operationalized law effectively repealed the standard 8-hour working day with a 12-hour with overtime payments applicable for work 75 hours to 125 hours per quarter. This is evident from workers' testimonies in the police inquiry into the incident. The pandemic as a foil. Amid the health pandemic and the lockdown, a few state governments sensed an opportunity to quickly ram through pieces of legislation or ordinances to whittle down the labor laws. It was purportedly to attract foreign capital seeking alternative locations to China. Considering rising geopolitical tensions, the reform effectively knocks down the foundations of national labor laws by paring down many protective laws. The Karnataka government is apparently at the forefront of such a reform drive, with the media widely reporting the legal chances and the deep discontent among the workers in the state. Cumbersome web. Some 47 central laws and 200 state labor laws, mostly applicable to the organized sector workers, requiring rationalization. Efforts to consolidate them have been for quite a while, but with the modest progress for the lack of agreement among the stakeholders and complexity of the legal frame. In 2019, government consolidated 29 central laws into the 4 labor codes and introduced bills in the parliament. The codes concern industrial relations, occupational safety, health and working conditions, so, social security and wages. The Code on Wages Bill 2019 was passed last year and the remaining 3 in September this year, without adequate consultation with the stakeholders and legislative scrutiny. ILO International Labour Organization stand how it is in China National Trade Union Federations, including the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh affiliated Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh BMS, have opposed many contentious charges. The reforms go against many of the International Labour Organization conventions to which India is a founding signatory. In the May, the ILO chastises the Uttar Pradesh government, which sought to suspend the labor laws for the next 3 years. There is undoubtedly a lot to learn from China's industrial success, but the government seems keen to emulate China's long working days and flexible use of labor. However, China also mandates employers to provide dormitory accommodation for workers close to the factories and other social security benefits. Factory provided dormitory accommodation is the principal reason for the slum free Chinese industrial cities, unlike in India. Moreover, as is widely known, China's local governments compete with each other to offer excellent physical infrastructure and ensure adequate credit to industrial enterprises through the national development banks. Thus, generation act as a midwife in the industrial promotion. Why do they do so? Because the professional rewards for the Chinese bureaucracy and provincial ruling party officials are dependent on the local economic performance. India's efforts at cherry picking legal chances for labor reforms without reasonable compensation are bound to face resistance. If we look at the data on earnings, the average daily earnings of a casual worker in urban India in 2018-19, as per the official's periodic labor workforce wage survey, are nearly rupees 256 or 6400 per month for 25 days of work. It is below the official living wage as defined by the 7th pay commission for central government employees. Industrial workers are ever eager to work longer hours for overtime, considering the low absolute earning levels. Trade unions mostly welcome negotiations for labor flexibility linked to productivity, but resist its unilateral imposition if the productivity gains accrue mainly to the management. The winner takes all situation. The Bridgestone episode has highlighted how the government has sought changed workers as the length of the working day was unilaterally raised from 8 hours to 12 hours in October, undoing the principal provisions of the Factory Act 1948. The State Labour Department has reportedly admitted the flaw in ordinance. In its letter to the Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment at the Centre, if principal employers in the case of Bridgestone and their labor contractors view the reforms as unbridled hunting license. Such legal changes are bound to unleash a backlash sooner and later. The Bridgestone episode seems proof of this. No surprises that what are the lessons of this sorry episode? Hoodwinking workers is politically illegitimate and economically suicidal in a shrinking economy. During the lockdown following the novel coronavirus pandemic, when lakhs of workers lost jobs and livelihood, trudging back to their villages, an insensitive government, instead of addressing the humanitarian crisis, cleverly sought to capitalize on working class misery to undercut wages, or a morally reprehensible act in any civilized society. So it should not come as a surprise if such a hasty and crafty measures have now backfired, denting India's image among the global investors. The Bridgestone dispute has apparently turned the clock back on the government's efforts to boost domestic production, make in India, and enhance national self-reliance. Atmanirbhar Bharat. Nagaraj is the Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala.